Am I the a-hole for sacrificing my daughter's college fund because her sister just gave birth to her fourth child? My 48 female older daughter, 24 female, gave birth to her fourth child 6 months ago. She used to work as a dishwasher, but due to health issues stemming from her second child, chronic back pain, and then her third child, after effects of broken tailbone and more chronic pain that made standing and moving around hard, she can no longer work. She tried her best, getting an office temp job, but after about a week, the woman supervising her said this isn't working out. She was a very uptight woman who claims it just always took her 3 days max to train everybody else to the data entry work, that she can't just be a good person and accommodate slow learners. That woman likely caused her to get a bad reputation at a temp agency, and she didn't get hired elsewhere. My daughter's boyfriend, 28 male, works at Walmart. He had much more hours when she was pregnant, but since then, his hours have ebbed and flowed. He said it will take a day in the future to look for jobs, but it's the holidays and is busy with the family. I feel a lot of empathy for my daughter and her boyfriend, and I wish I could help them out more. But I myself, a single mom working for a nursing home where I struggle to get full-time hours. And my ex ran up a lot of debt in both our names, and is now living in another country. My younger daughter, 17 female, has a college fund. The amount in it would be enough to pay a large amount of a 2-year community college tuition, given the scholarships/grants she would likely get. She's applied to 4-year universities, with the understanding that she'd be taking out loans and working, so she's deciding between 4 years and community college. The other issue dropped after my older daughter's landlord found out that they were having her boyfriend's brother and girlfriend living in their one bedroom, in exchange for them helping with the rent, and they got evicted. My daughter agrees it was wrong to lie to the landlord, and both parents are depressed because her boyfriend got a job offer once stayed away, and they would have to move from their support network. They came to me asking for help so they could have more time to find financial stability here. I was torn, but seeing my grandkids, I knew my duty was to care for the most vulnerable in the family. So I will be making calls to liquidate my daughter's college fund, saying yes to understanding the penalties, and told my daughter this. She got very cold and said, "You always brag about having a good memory. I hope you remember this moment then." She has not spoken to me since. Spent Thanksgiving inquiring with family friends to see if hospitals are keen to hire college students for kitchen or reception or anything. Made some cryptic posts about how she hopes she'll be grateful one day that she won't have the privilege of studying anything outside of something technical because she needs something where she'll always be able to find a job in. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. So your oldest daughter could barely afford 3 kids, has chronic pain, no job, and decided a 4th child would be a great idea? And then you thought the best solution was to anger your other daughter and mess with her future, when there was an option of them moving so they could get more money? Of course you're the a-hole. You're the a-hole. How can you not see what you have just done to your youngest daughter? Recall the advice your daughter gave you. It will be necessary to address the question of why you never see her, and why she refuses to allow you to see your grandkids. When OP's youngest daughter is successful in the future, OP will play the, "See, you didn't need my help anyways. It all worked out. Any difficulties you faced just made you stronger." And then she will wonder why her daughter isn't thanking her for giving the opportunity to do it on her own. Hope you like these 4 grandkids a lot, OP. They're likely the only ones you'll get a relationship with. You're the a-hole. Why does your daughter have 4 kids if she can't support any of them? They should be using birth control, and you should not be cuddling them. Now you're sacrificing your younger daughter's future because her older sister can't find a condom. And further, why are they not in any form of aid, even church handouts? Why is the sister to bail out here? The oldest daughter is disabled, and they make Walmart money. They definitely qualify for multiple assistance measures. Medicaid, SSI, SNAP, TANF, work rehabilitation. I mean, even Head Start. This seems like textbook learned/willful helplessness to me. Applying for aid requires recognizing that you're in a bad situation and need to do something about it. The oldest daughter doesn't think she needs to do anything about it, and refuses to acknowledge that she can, because she's learned that if she whines hard enough about things, others will fix her problems for her. She's been raised with no concept of personal ownership over the consequences of her actions, and OP is just reinforcing that again and again. Getting your mom to raid your sister's college fund requires a lot less time and effort than applying for aid for yourself. And the older sister sees nothing wrong with this, as she's obviously become incredibly self-centered and entitled as a result of all this favoritism. Helping family is great, but the way to actually do that is to help them take ownership of their problems, rather than just fixing it for them. The fact that OP didn't realize that she's the problem while tapping this out doesn't give me high hopes that the enablement won't continue. Next story. I kicked my step-granddaughter out of my house. For context, stepchild was evaluated and examined by a psychologist and physician the police department chose. The child showed no sign of abuse. The psychologist said stepchild is a danger to others and needs extensive help, and she advised we keep her away from our family. We tried to include her in our family, but she's made it damn near impossible. So I, 57 male, have a daughter who is 30, well, almost 31. In 2019, my daughter married her now husband who is a bit older than her, but not much. He's 39. I begged her not to marry him, not because I don't like him, but because of his terror of a child. My daughter has a son with my son-in-law, and my son-in-law has a 13-year-old daughter from a previous relationship. The 13-year-old has made it damn near impossible for my daughter to enjoy her baby. This child is incredibly dangerous in my opinion, and before the major event that caused me to cut contact with her, it was always something she had going. Last year, the 13-year-old stepchild told the school that my son, 22, had SA'd her, and it started a crap storm of police interviews and other things. It came out pretty quickly she was lying, because my son has a large burn scar that takes up the lower half of his body, and the stepchild couldn't identify it via photos. My son volunteered for and passed a polygraph test. The psychologist who interviewed both my son and the stepchild deduced rather quickly that the stepchild was lying. When confronted, the stepchild admitted she was lying because she was angry my daughter wouldn't get her a laptop. We had a situation at Christmas before where I bought my daughter a gaming laptop, and my step-granddaughter wanted it but her tantrum didn't work, so she decided to try and steal it. Still didn't work. I invited my daughter and grandson to Thanksgiving and told my son-in-law he was more than welcome to come but his child was not. He said he understood. So, my daughter, my grandson, and my son-in-law show up on Thanksgiving Day. Everything was going well until we hear the front door open and in walks stepchild. Apparently, her mother had gotten wind we were gathered at my house and decided stepchild should be included. I met stepchild at the foyer and told her she wasn't welcome in my home and needed to leave. She got smug, saying, well, my mom's already left, so, and tried to push past me. I held my arms out and stopped her, telling her to get out now. I forced her to back outside and told her she could wait by the mailbox while she called her mom to come get her. This child has never heard no more than a few times. I told my son-in-law he could do what he wanted as long as it didn't involve bringing her in my home. He went outside and came back in to tell us that apparently her mom thought we weren't allowed to gather unless it included stepchild. Her mom ended up coming back to get her only when I called the police. I had her and her mother trespassed. Her mom pitched a fit, but the officers fully understood once I provided proof this brat had lied on my son. Now everyone on my son-in-law's side is saying I'm an a-hole for being mean to a child, but frankly, I'd prefer never to see her again. Not the a-hole. The child obviously has either some type of mental illness or she is lashing out due to the divorce. Either way, she needs therapy and needs to stay with her mother until she gets help. I would not put my child/grandchild in the path of this little liar. By the way, the bio mother just dropped the girl off at Opie's house tells me where the granddaughter gets her attitude. Not the a-hole. If she can make false accusations about your son, she can make false accusations about you or anyone else in your family. She is not safe to have around. Please don't forget that OP has been emotionally abused by this girl. He had the right not to be in the company of his abuser. Not the a-hole. As soon as the girl falsely accused her son of SA, all bets were off. You did the right thing by not allowing her in your house. Maybe she needs mental health help, but that's not your problem. Your responsibility is to your own family. For real, we're approaching Christmas again. If she comes by, she might accuse OP of SA. This is just self-preservation. My cousin did this to an uncle. She had asked him to tickle her in a living room that her parents were both in at a time. Then later, said it touched her inappropriately, even though it was in plain view of several adults. From that moment on, he would not be alone with her. He would not play with her, though she begged many times. She liked the attention the complaint got her, but then didn't like the consequence that he no longer engaged with her. She later accused a teacher of SA when she was in middle school, and it was also found to be a lie. And her family, instead of giving her consequences, packed up and moved to a different state. I hate this, because girls who have serious accusations go through worse hell. My son had to help raise hell when a brat accused this older guy who drove their bus of touching her. She'd pitched a fit because he stopped the van and made her sit down before he moved. So she accused this nice old man because she was mad. Son always sat behind him just to talk. I liked him so was able to confirm nothing happened. These kids make it harder for actual victims, and of course, put innocent people through hell. Not the a-hole. That kid has major problems, and could have potentially ruined your kid's life with her false allegations. Your son-in-law is an a-hole because he had a hand in raising the entitled brat. He needs to get her some kind of help because nobody seems to want her around, which is why her mother was so quick to try and palm her off on a family where she had already accused someone of a horrible crime. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not offering my half-sister any of our grandmother's belongings after she was disowned by the family? My 26 female grandmother recently passed away. My grandfather passed 6 years ago, which is when the bulk of their assets were divided up. My grandmother lived in a stipend from his estate until her death, so all she had to leave in her will was her possessions, mostly jewelry, vintage clothes, and some art in the house. This was all left to me, as I'm the only granddaughter she was in contact with. My half-sister Angela, 27 female, is also her granddaughter, but Angela and her mother sued for inheritance from my grandfather's estate after he died, which culminated in an ugly legal battle that ended up making both my grandmother and father quite ill. The case was eventually thrown out, but everyone thought Angela and her mother harassing a grieving woman the way they did and suing for money they were not owed was despicable, and none of us except my dad have spoken to Angela since. So going through my grandmother's things, I called my dad, uncles, and cousins and asked if there was anything they wanted of my grandmother's. The art was in high demand, the rugs, etc., and I gave everyone what they asked for. I didn't call Angela. Not only have I not spoken to her, but she hardly saw our grandmother. And knowing her, she'd ask for something expensive and pawn it. She heard from our dad that I'd be handing out things and found me in social media to chew me out for not offering her anything, calling me greedy, selfish, and a terrible person. She said she's entitled to have something and really should have had half of the stuff, given my grandmother had more than one granddaughter. I don't agree that she should have had half, because at the end of the day it was my grandmother's choice and her possessions. But I am wondering, given how hurt she sounded in her voice note, if I should have offered her something inexpensive / not sentimental, just as a token to be polite. Did I mess up? Now for the comments. Angela and her mother sound greedy. Your grandmother decided that she wanted everything to go to you. It is yours legally. You have the right to decide to distribute it to other family members, which you did. Do you think if you told Angela you would give her something inexpensive, not sentimental, she would have been satisfied? You know her better than Reddit does. Your dad was wrong to tell Angela what you had done with what you inherited. Not the a-hole. Block her. Tell your dad you do not want to communicate with her again. Tell your father if he thinks Angela should have something, he should give her something he has already received from you. Angela is living with the consequences of her actions. Cause and effect. Yes, this right here. OP is not the a-hole. One of my exes had to deal with predatory cousins selling off things they stole from his grandmother. They were living with her, and the family still doesn't know how much they looted and grifted from an old lady with increasing health issues and possibly dementia. Not the a-hole. Your grandmother's estate was left to you. It is up to you who you give things to. Your half-sister has no claim and no right to any of it. Your half-sister can be as hurt as she wants to be. It is all up to you. After the way she behaved when your grandfather died, she really deserves what you have given her. Exactly. The nerve of Angela to call OP greedy, selfish, and terrible, as if she completely disregarded and justified her actions after suing OP's grieving grandmother. Her greedy self deserves nothing. But my petty self would tell her to expect her inheritance in the mail soon and just send her an envelope with $1/1 and a note to go F herself. Not the a-hole. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not punishing my 4-year-old daughter after she said my sister-in-law smells like fish? I'm 25 female, my daughter is 4 female. My daughter Leah was sitting with me, her dad, and her baby brother on a couch. This was on Thanksgiving. My sister-in-law came over with her kids and husband. She walked through the door and asked my daughter for a hug. Leah walked over to her and stopped dead on her tracks before saying, "You smell." I corrected my daughter and told her that wasn't nice and she should apologize. But my daughter proceeded to say, "But mommy, she smells like fish." My sister-in-law got angry and started yelling at my daughter about how she was being disrespectful. My daughter started crying and I started yelling at my sister-in-law that she had no right to yell at my kids and that she should have talked to me about the issue instead of yelling at her. She proceeded to say she should be punished for what she said. I told her I would not punish my child for saying what she did. Instead, I would talk to her about her actions. She then left, taking her kids, and called me a crazy witch for not wanting to punish my child. My side of the family is saying that I'm not in the wrong, but my sister-in-law's side is saying that I should have punished her for her actions. Am I the a-hole? If someone smells fish, there isn't a 4-year-old in the world that won't point it out. At least with what went down, smelly fish lady wasn't in your house long enough to stink the place up. I'll never forget when I was a kid, we went with my parents and my grandparents who are from out of town to the old country buffet. There was this horribly fishy smell, but just rancid and disgusting, and I kept asking my parents what it was, and they would kind of giggle and whisper amongst themselves and tell me that they would explain it later. I was maybe 7, and it was just so annoying to me that they wouldn't tell me what it was. And eventually, after we went home, I finally got to talk to my mom privately, and she explained that sometimes older women don't wash their privates very well, and that was the smell. It was so horrifying to hear that as a kid, lol, but I sure made sure to always wash my privates. Any 4-year-old is going to be line of sight level, especially if they're coming in for a hug. But 4-year-old isn't going to shy away from that. Bro, I'm in a wheelchair. There are days when I wish I could be as innocently blunt as a 4-year-old. Am I wrong for making my son take a paternity test? This is a mess, and I would appreciate opinions from unbiased people. It was recommended that I post here and another page. I, female 39, have 2 kids, male 17 and female 10. When I was 21, I had a one-night stand which resulted in my son Austin, and the father wanted nothing to do with my child. When my son was 3, I met my husband Mark, male 38. My son adores my husband and calls him father. Austin met his current girlfriend through Mark's best friend Ellen, her father. Macy and Austin have been close since they were young, and we were all thrilled when we found out they were dating. After we found out, Mark and I sat Austin down and explained that we're happy for him, but we needed him to know the importance of safe sex, whether it was happening or not. He was disgusted, but said he understood, and we left it at that. For context, my son is what others describe as shy and soft-spoken. He's really sensitive and takes harsh comments/actions to heart. We thought everything was fine with him until he came home crying. He eventually told us Macy had cheated on him. I was angry and urged my son to leave, but my husband calmed us both and asked to speak with Austin privately. Essentially, he asked Austin what he wanted to do and if he wanted us to stop seeing Macy and her father. Austin said he didn't want that and wanted to work things out with Macy. I was upset but didn't say anything, and ever since that happened, I've hated seeing her around. All I think about when I see her is my son distressed and crying his eyes out. I act cordial around her, but I don't like her. Around February, Austin came home looking rather upset again, so I sat down with him and asked what's going on. I wasn't expecting to hear him say what he said to me. Macy's pregnant. I was furious. I told him I expected better from him. I also said that before anything happened, he needed to do a paternity test. He was angry that I suggested she cheated again, but I didn't like how she was suddenly pregnant. When Mark came home from work, I filled him in and he was equally upset. We all sat down and discussed it. Austin explained that I demanded a paternity test was done, and Mark wasn't happy to hear that. I explained that she's cheated before. She could have cheated again. That led to a huge argument before we all calmed down. I asked if her parents knew. Apparently not. He said she agreed to tell them tonight. And sure enough, about an hour later, Mark gets an angry call from Alan demanding that my son marries his daughter. And if Austin refuses, he demands that he pay child support and stay out of the kid's life. Of course, we were all angry and exhausted, so I said that nothing was happening until a paternity test was done, and I wasn't taking the word of a cheating little girl. He blew up at us, and it was radio silence after the call. Macy was then told she can no longer see Austin, and he took it out on me. A few weeks ago, Alan contacted us and agreed to do a paternity test. I asked quite a sudden change, but he ignored me. He said he set up the appointment for May 5th. Austin went with Mark. He said he didn't want to be around me. It stung, and I won't lie, it made me cry when he said that. Results finally came in a few nights ago, and he isn't the father. He was shattered. But instead of apologizing, he screamed that this was my fault, and he would have never known. He hasn't said much to me since. Maybe I was wrong for making him do a paternity test, but I was only looking out for my son. Was I wrong for making him take a paternity test? You're not wrong. The girl was a known cheater. Your son was an easy mark. He is young, sensitive, and hurt. This pregnancy would have affected his entire life going forward had he been the father. He will appreciate your insistence on the paternity test after he has a chance to sort his emotions. Or pay child support for a child that isn't his, just to have her throw that fact in his face 10 years down the road. Finding out now is the best scenario. Or he stays with her and she continues to cheat and raise a child that isn't his. He will understand one day. He's hurting right now and you're just the person he took it out on. Once he understands the gravity of the situation and what it takes to raise a child, he will thank you. Exactly. At 17, my mother got a lot of volatile, displaced anger thrown at her from me. Looking back, I think I raged at her because she was a safe person. By that, I mean even though there may have been consequences to my actions, I knew no matter what she wouldn't leave or reject me. Opie, your son is taking this out on you because he trusts that you love him and will be there for him when the dust settles. As counterintuitive as that may sound, it's safer for him to direct all his pain and anger at you than at the ex-girlfriend. You did the right thing getting the test. Continue to be there for your son as he processes this heavy ordeal, and eventually he'll come to understand. This applies to all ages. A friend told me the other night that she'd heard a loud house full of yelling and screaming is one where the child/children feel safe to express their feelings and opinions with their parents. It's the quiet houses that you should worry about. 1,000,000% not wrong. He will appreciate it one day. I'm not sure why your husband was so against the paternity test from the start though. Since your husband was against it, your son feels like you're in the wrong for pushing on it. He's just dealing with a broken heart right now. Don't take it to heart. My take on the husband is that maybe this is a sensitive topic for him, since he's taken on a fatherly role to Opie's son who isn't biologically his. This is obviously a very different situation, and Opie is in the right. But I wonder if Opie's immediate jump to a paternity test has triggered something for the husband about Opie not seeing him as Austin's real father, or something to that extent. Next story. 18 years ago today, I was essentially erased from my family's existence. Today marks 18 years since I was told that the man I called Dad my entire life got DNA test results back and confirmed I wasn't his biological son. It also marks 18 years since we've spoken. In his eyes, regardless of raising me my entire life, I don't exist. The kicker is that my mother is still with him and lies to everyone about his relationship with me. I am not welcome in their home, and there are 0 pictures of me or my children displayed. I've effectively been erased from existence, at least in his head. He and my mom married prior to the Vietnam War, and when he returned, he decided he didn't want to be married anymore. So they split, and she started seeing someone in the office she worked. He got jealous and wanted her back, so they got back together. Apparently, my conception occurred during that break. In the 18 years since we last spoke, I've learned who my biological father is, though he will not recognize the fact even with conclusive DNA tests. I've learned of at least 4 half-siblings, all of which are significantly older than me. While I've been able to connect with them, there really isn't any type of relationship there. The biggest impact this event had on me was increasing my issues with abandonment and feelings of worthlessness. It negatively impacted my ability to form meaningful relationships and continued to make me feel alone in the world. By all observations, I have a decent life. I'm a father to 2 wonderful children, involved in a community, and helped at their respective schools. But I still feel out of place, like I'm playing pretend around others. I constantly second-guess every interaction I have and never feel worthy of anyone else's time. It has been a major struggle. Battling anxiety and depression at the same time only makes it worse. Isolation of working from home plays into it, but I am happy in my current company. Only a select few people in my real life actually know any of this, and I feel like I'd be even more of an outcast if I told others. I just put on a smile when I'm in public and pretend like there isn't a huge hole in me. I don't even expect anyone to even read this whole bumbling spewing of word salad, but at least I've told the universe. If you are still reading this, I just want to say thank you for taking the time. I see you. I hear you. It sucks when someone else's problems become ours. Mostly the situation sounds like a him problem, not a you problem. Unfortunately, your mom and he have made it a you problem. The world has your back. Keep being the most you can be. Your validation comes from you, not another single person alive gets that work. Thank you. It's definitely difficult when people from my childhood ask how my dad is. I suppressed my feelings about the situation so long, but thankfully counseling has helped. You don't have to lie. Lots of people ask me why my dad wasn't around for my childhood. At first, I would lie or dance around it, but I realized it's so much better to say he was an alcoholic. I'm not hurting him by being honest, People don't look down on me for his choices. I've reconnected with my dad and still love him, but I'm still honest when people ask. It's my truth. Feel free to tell yours. The way your parents have treated you says more about them than it does about you. No child deserves that kind of BS. Yes, this. Exactly this. The father thinks someone's genetic material matters more than all the time they spent building a relationship. The fact that he can just tear it down in a second speaks volumes about him as a human being. Those volumes, of which there are enough to fill a small library, just say insecure, hurtful, self-centered dumpster fire of a human being over and over again for 4,000 pages, and have a middle finger embossed on a cover. The mother is either complicit or so horrifically mistreated as to be cowed into going along with it. Either way, it makes me want to vomit. Opie's family's where they find it. These wastes of oxygen are not deserving of him. He deserves friends and family who love him and accept him as he is. Thank you for the message. A new study was just published in Psychiatry Research and shared through SciPost.org that discusses the difficulties that people who have a non-parental event struggle with, and I opened my eyes. There is a Facebook group that I've joined for support in dealing with this. I would very much suggest that you befriend an older man. Robert Bly, an 80s philosopher, said, "Every young man needs an older man in his life." I'm over 60 and have been very fortunate to have had a number of these friends and mentors in my life over the years. You might start looking around at neighbors, church, social groups, maybe even an old folks' home. A lot of older folks like to talk about their history, but if you find a right one, they can and will want to be a friend/mentor. It only takes one. P.S. Your dad is probably a self-absorbed and flaky scumbag. I want to be married. I don't. I do. And your mother is likely an extremely weak and bad person not to care about her son. I actually have, to an extent. My high school swim coach became a valued mentor and taught me so many things. Upon graduating high school, I actually joined the staff as a coach and served under him for 19 years until he retired. Another set of parents of some kids I coached have become somewhat of a surrogate family as well. We have dinner every week together, which has been helping a lot. I appreciate your comment. Edited to add, the outpouring of support that I've received has been incredible. I want to thank each and every person who has commented or messaged, and I'm doing my best to reply to each of you. Whether you've had a similar experience or offered advice, from the bottom of my heart, I greatly appreciate it. Last story. Girlfriend 23 female appears to be seeing this guy 21 male behind my 25 male back. I sometimes go on her laptop to help with work stuff. Last time I was on it, a message came through from this guy I'd never heard of. I looked and they appeared to message very frequently, but the fact that I only just saw it after how many months gives me the impression that she mutes notifications from him when with me, but forgot this time around. I don't mind people having friends, but from the messages I've seen, this friendship seems to be very strange. The messages are platonic enough for the most part, but she is a very reserved girl, and the messages between us would appear to be platonic to an outsider, so I just can't take it at a surface level. I also know they messaged on multiple apps, because in some messages she was like, "Hold on, we'll go to the other chat," which just adds to my suspicions. I have no idea what this other chat is, but that's not even what upsets me the most. Like I said, I'm fine with her having friends, but there were a few conversations that make me think that it isn't just an ordinary friendship. I don't want to analyze too much of the convos in this post because it'll get too long, but a good summary would be that they seemed to confess to liking each other when they were out somewhere. And a convo the next day was basically her saying that she likes him, but doesn't know what to do, and at least for now, she's with me. Her exact words. Initially, I thought, okay, fair. A boundary was crossed and she set the record straight. However, prior to that convo, they seemed to hang out as part of a work group. But following that convo, they started hanging out alone. Just the two of them. Messages are one thing, and I can just read them and come to a conclusion. But what on earth happens when they're out together? And why the hell would she hang out with a guy who she knows likes her if there wasn't some hidden motive? Oh, and there is something else. She usually stays at mine every weekend, but she doesn't tell him that. She tells him that she's hanging out with a family or going to a friend's, which makes me think she's been hiding me from him too in recent weeks. I don't know why she would do that, especially since she told him she's with me, but that was 3 months ago. I haven't told her anything because there are so many gaps and I don't want any plausible deniability. I need to see this other chat, but she is extremely private, so there is no precedent to look at her phone. I think I'm going to ask who he is and mention that I saw a message come from him and see what she says. If I get the impression that she's being dishonest, I'll tell her what I saw and go from there. I don't want to come to any conclusions before at least speaking to her, so I want to get it right. How should I go about this? Shall I wait for more proof or bring it up to her now? Now for the top advice before the mini update. Just end it. You don't need this nonsense in your life. Agreed. OP, you don't need this mess in your life. If this is how she behaves when she's your girlfriend, then what is your recourse would be if she starts doing the same if she were to be your fiancé or your wife? Please be glad that she showed you her true colors now, instead of 10 years from now. I'm going to sound like such an old prick, but you're so young. Is this really something you want to fight for? I'm an old prick too, and while I might have mooned over a girl when I was in my 20s, at my age, I have realized that this kind of bollocks is just too draining. Let her go, OP, and find someone who isn't playing two blokes off against each other. Cut your losses now and put it down to experience. In her head, she's already getting her legs blown off by him. You're just a safe bet. I guarantee it won't be too long before she really does succumb to his charms and ends up doing the dirty and bringing home something that'll have you taking antibiotics or antivirals for God knows how long. Don't do it yourself. I just have to ask, say she is biding her time while she chooses between you, and in the story you laid out, the best case scenario is she chooses you. Now what? Now you have a girlfriend who makes you insecure, who is wishy-washy, who is not fiercely loyal. You may care about her after a year, but consider this a bullet dodged. You would never want to marry somebody like this. You guys have only been dating for a year. Your relationship should still be fun, exciting, and new. If she's already bored and looking elsewhere, why would you want to spend any more years with her? Update. This probably warrants an update post, but I can't be bothered at the moment, and we'll just sum it up here. I reached out to the guy and he seems nice, but I can't tell if he's lying and I don't really care at this point. He said their relationship has been platonic, but she does act inappropriately sometimes when they're together, but he brushes her off. He said that he did like her, but sees her as a lost cause who doesn't know what she wants, so he has been trying to distance himself. He also said she's the one who reaches out to him and asks to go out, but I've seen multiple of instances of the opposite, so I don't trust what he says. I think he's trying to cover his back. Either way, I'm breaking up with her. Would I be the a-hole if I ask my daughter to return her inheritance? I have 2 sons and a daughter. All of my children are college-aged. My first son wanted to study medicine, and medicine is very expensive. After he finished high school, my husband got sick and my firstborn daughter Janine took over the business. She opted not to go to university but encouraged her brother to pursue medicine and that she will work in the family business and pays fees. Her other brother also wants to pursue medicine, so Janine agreed to pay for them too. That was 6 years ago, and all of her siblings are finished with their studies and doing internships. My husband's health has also improved, but my daughter still runs the business. My daughter decided to move to Canada since all of her siblings have become self-sufficient and my husband and I have saved for retirement. I was talking to my husband and he was thinking about writing a will. He decided that from the sales of the business, Janine will receive 70% of the money, and her siblings will share the 30% left equally. His reasoning was that the business paid for the medical school fees and it is expensive. Since Janine did not go to medical school and worked in the business, she should get all of the money. I do agree that Janine put her life on hold for her siblings, but she is getting married to a very rich man who will take care of her. My sons, on the other hand, will need money to get married and they all want to stay-at-home wives. I can't seem to change my husband's opinion. I think that they should all share the money equally. Janine has a very strong business sense. She changed our company. Before, it was making 1 million profits in a year, but when she took over, it started making 3 million. She can start her own business, and I know she can make it thrive. Meanwhile, the money doctors making during their internship and residency is very low. I tried to explain this to my husband, but all he says is they should start eating ramen noodles and stop relying on their sister. I have decided to ask Janine to give her money to her brothers after her dad transfers it. So would I be the a-hole if I ask that of her? Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole. She already sent the rest of your kids to college for you. Now you want her to get less inheritance? At what point does she ever get a return on her hard work? And remember, this was written by OP, so she probably painted herself in the best light possible. Imagine how bad she truly acted and is acting. She also expects her son's future wives to stay at home and not work, while she wants her daughter to start her own business after she gets married. Okay, so your daughter stepped in and passed up on college to take over the business for your family. She paid for the son's education. She even tripled the profits of the business. In what world is it fair to her to penalize her for marrying someone with money? I'm not done yet. Now, your husband clearly owns 100% of the asset. For whatever reason, it is his, not yours. In what world is it fair to go around him and try to ensure his asset isn't divided as he has planned for it? Not sure why you love your sons more than your daughter. The supposed justification that doctors don't earn enough, but yet they plan to have stay-at-home wives, is a complete load of crap, and you know it. You don't love your daughter. You do love your sons. You have a chance to at least avoid pointing this out to her here. Your interference will accomplish nothing but hard feelings within your family. You're the a-hole. My God, woman, you are truly the a-hole here. Your daughter did what she could do to help out the entire family. 1. She helped her father when he was ill and continued running the business so you and your husband would still have a roof over your heads. 2. Your daughter sacrificed her own personal interest for herself by not attending university to help the family. 3. While working for that same business, she was able to increase profits for her father's company and assist her brothers in gaining an education to pursue careers as doctors. 4. Then when your husband has recovered and wants to reward his daughter for her personal sacrifices, it wants to reimburse her down the road for her kindness and love of family. Somehow, you can't get it through your poor sons who will do just fine down the road because their freaking doctors scold that your husband is 1000% happy to reward his daughter for the love, support, and sacrifice she endured for you all? And so what? She just happened to have met a lovely man who just appears to be wealthy, and that should cover it. Your husband wants to make sure she gets what she deserves. Let the man do so. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not telling my mom I got full ride scholarship to college? I, 18 female, stopped living at my mom's when I was 17. She and I do not have a very good relationship and has become more strained over the years. The trouble started when I was 8 and my mom started dating her husband. I was several months out from losing my dad, and when she introduced me to her husband, then boyfriend, I was honest that I did not like her dating. She told me I would come around. But within 4 months, she left me with a cousin and got engaged to the guy while his kids were present. I found out because my cousin got a text with a photo of them, and the news had already gone around the rest of my mom's family and her husband's family. Then I was the last person to find out about her being pregnant 2 years after that point. Her stepson, who was 15 at the time, decided he would taunt me with the news and saying how mom had fully replaced my dad and I was next. I don't think he actually saw it that way, but he knew that's how I felt about mom being remarried. Apparently, they were all taken by their dad to be told while my mom was telling her family. I think it was like a week later when he taunted me over it. They did attempt to include me in stuff, but because I wasn't into it, that was kind of just left to be its own thing. Mom pulled away from me and would then feel bad and try to bond. Eventually, I just decided I had lost her because I couldn't blend with her husband and his kids, and because she would always resent me for that. The way I resented her for moving so fast after dad and putting everyone before me. I moved in with my dad's parents. This is where I was when I applied for college and stuff and I got the scholarship. I never told my mom. We didn't talk for months. And it's only after I started college last week that she had reached out to my grandparents about something and she found out. She was upset, furious, all the stuff, and she asked how I could leave her out of something so huge. Because she would have celebrated the news with me. I told her I didn't really consider her part of my life anymore, and just like she had moved on from her life away from me, I had done the same away from her. She told me it was different and I was being cruel. Her husband took over and demanded I go to them and discuss everything as a family so that my mom could have the life she deserves, and have her kid treat her right instead of being selfish and spoiled. I never set out to hurt my mom, but I did stop thinking about her role in my life after I moved out. Am I the a-hole? So that my mom could have the life she deserves and have her kid treat her right instead of being selfish and spoiled. That right there says it all. It still isn't about you. They are still only thinking of themselves. And how dare you not submit to them? Not today, Holopi. I hope you have a good time at college. Yep, stepdad sounds like a piece of work. What's that? You put in the effort to get a full-ride scholarship to college? How selfish and spoiled you must be. It's clear that neither of them intended to put up money for college if Opie had already started by the time they found out, and then they chose to be mad about it rather than happy for her. Interesting emotional choice to say the least. I wouldn't be surprised if they heard she was in college and reached out because they wondered how she was paying for it. Not out of desire to help, but to figure out if they might be entitled to it. I think mom wanted to make a big online brag about her daughter getting a big scholarship. My absent parent complained that no one was congratulating him over the accomplishment of the child he hadn't spoken to for years. Like he had anything to do with it. Not today, Hall. She didn't do the work to keep you in her family, so yeah, you aren't part of her family. Why would you tell her when she isn't part of your life? Congratulations on your scholarship. I know that must have taken some work. It's interesting that your mom is upset not to know about your scholarship, but had no discussion with you about your plans after graduation. That seems so basic a discussion. Hey, what are your plans? Communication is a two-way street. If this assumption is correct, she never asked you your plans. Then not today, Hall. We hadn't talked in months, so no, she never asked me plans for college or anything. Not recently anyway. When I was 15, we got into a fight about it, but otherwise nothing. She abandoned you. She doesn't get to have it both ways. You can't abandon a child and then be a priority to the child. She sounds insufferable. Not today, Hall. Just go no contact with her and walk away. Next story. Am I the a-hole for wanting my parents in town but not at my house while I'm adjusting to life with a newborn? I'm 24 female. I'm currently pregnant. Due in December. I live with my fiancé Dan in the town where I grew up. I have a great relationship with my parents, but they had me quite late in life and they're both retired now, living in a beach town in the south. When they moved out, they sold me the house I grew up in well below market value, in exchange for me hosting them when they needed/wanted to come into town. It's been like that for 2 years. They've been here a bunch of times for 3 to 4 days at a time, and it's been a good arrangement, I think. Now, yesterday, I was talking to my mom about the birth, and I brought up that I would like her to be in town when I give birth, and to stay for a few weeks after. Dan has no relationship with his family, and I'm an only child, with only a couple of very elderly aunts and a few cousins I don't have much of a relationship with, so we don't really have much in terms of a support system. Therefore, I'd love for my parents to come here and help around the house, with the baby, offer me the emotional support I know I'm going to need, etc. My mom was excited that I was asking her to do this, and said that she'd be okay with staying with us for a few weeks while we adjusted to the baby. I then told her that I didn't mean her staying with us, just in town, as I believe Dan and I are going to need and want alone time to adjust to the baby. My mom was a little offended, saying that she wasn't going to bother us and she was going to help out. But I told her it was nothing personal. I just preferred if she got a hotel or Airbnb or something. My father then intervened, having been somewhere within earshot, and said that accommodation was going to be really expensive around that time of the year. Our town has a very big Christmas market, and he wasn't going to spend thousands of dollars when I was asking them to come. And it had been our agreement when they sold me the house that they could stay whenever they wanted. Which is fair, but I don't think that having a newborn at home is just a regular time in someone's life. And it's not like I ever complained about them coming over before. I just don't want them in the house, but I do want them in town. And I feel a little sad that they're putting money above me and their grandson. My mother hung up the call trying to appease the situation, but then sent me a text saying that her and my dad were a little upset over the whole thing, and that they thought I wasn't being reasonable. When Dan got home, I told him all this, and he kind of sided with them, saying that they should be allowed to stay with us. But I still don't think it makes sense, as we are going to be needing our alone time. Was I the a-hole here? Now for the top comments. You're not the a-hole for wanting privacy with your husband as you adjust to being parents. But you're the a-hole for asking your parents to come, but stay at a hotel without offering to pay for it. Sadly, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Wanting support is understandable, but if you want them near but not at your home, you need to pay for it. It's unreasonable to ask them to foot the bill. It's understandable to want privacy and time to adjust, and you are not obligated to have anyone in your home that you do not want. But I'm astounded by your entitlement. You want your elderly parents to spend thousands to stay in an Airbnb for a month during holiday season and provide you with emotional and practical support while you adjust to parenthood? Have you forgotten who's doing who the favor? You're the a-hole. You're the a-hole. Either let them stay at your house or pay for their hotel/B&B/whatever yourself, or don't expect them to visit. They're doing you a favor. A second favor at that, since they already sold you their house at well below market value in exchange for your letting them stay there when they visit. I'm not saying you're an a-hole for not wanting house guests when you have a new baby. Just that you can't demand that they visit for an extended period to help you, but insist that they pay their own way. She also wants them there to help with housework. She's asking them to come over and clean the house they're not allowed to stay in, then leave to go back to the hotel she expects them to pay for. The audacity of some new parents. I'm actually flabbergasted. The entitlement reeks in this post. Imagine being a parentless, infertile, homeless woman with dreams of becoming a mother, having a roof over their head. This has checked your privilege all over it. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister-in-law she's ruining her relationship with her newly adopted son? My sister-in-law, my husband's oldest sister, and her husband have been foster parents forever. Just recently, like the past 3 months recently, one of their longtime foster kids officially became their son after living with them for 4 years. And sister-in-law and her husband have decided they are changing his first name because it's too weird and not a real name. Given his name is incredibly uncommon, and not my kid, I won't share it, but think of something along the lines of word names that relate to the ocean. He loves his name. He has never expressed any kind of bad vibe about his name, and he has actually asked them not to change it. Speaking as someone who also has a very uncommon name, at least for the US, and think constellation for what mine could be, and who loves my name also, I feel so bad for him. They told him he would thank them one day, and to think about how nice it would be for him to be named by his parents instead of by strangers. He's almost 9, and he told them it was part of who he is. He also pointed to me, but they said I was different, and that I am not a doctor or a lawyer, so my name is less of a hindrance. He said he doesn't want to be a doctor or a lawyer either. They told him he could change his mind, and in the corporate world his current name would not work. I pointed out that I do have a corporate job and have never had problems. But again, I am different. They decided his name should be James or William, and they are working on deciding which to use while giving him a family name. My husband told them they should listen to me. Sister-in-law went on a tangent about how I don't know what I'm talking about, and I should sit down and consider the harm my parents did to me by inflicting me with a name as stupid as mine. I told her she could insult me, my parents, and everyone else who gives their kids names she doesn't like, but she has to accept the fact her son wants to keep his name. And just seeing these people who promise to love him and be his family when he didn't always have one, try to change him and tell him he's wrong for hating his name. I said she might not see it, but she is seriously harming their relationship. And she should be prepared for him to not forgive her for this. I also pointed out how it is a link to his biological parents, not just to random strangers, but to people who are no longer alive to care for him. I can't say what she said, but she told me I should mind my own business, that I had no right to say any of this to her, which might be true. Am I the a-hole? My knee-jerk is that this has zero to do with the corporate world. This is all about her discomfort with a name she sees as less than normal. That kid has a rough ride ahead. The kid already has a job to do. Assimilate and grow up to be a doctor or lawyer. That would be a great return on an investment on their part. Buy kid and he in turns buys you a nice house to retire in. Just waiting for them to fling out during an argument how he needs to be grateful to them always no matter what, because they adopted him and they didn't need to. I mean, that is an easy fix, even if they change it. Tell the kid that he doesn't have to respond to a name he doesn't identify with, and he can change it back when he turns 18. When my mother started calling me by a nickname I didn't like, I would simply pretend I didn't hear her until she got frustrated and used my real name. Opie should start saving money and offer to give it to him when he's 18 as a birthday gift. Am I the a-hole for suggesting that my parents move out of the house? I am the oldest of my parents' 8 children, all 3 to 16 years old while I am 23. My biological father died 2 months after I was born, and my stepfather has been present in my life since I was 3 years old. The house I currently live in, belonged to my paternal grandfather when he died, as he had no wife and children as my biological father was an only child, made me the only heir of his estate. He passed away when I was 15. As the house was quite big, 7 bed, 4 baths, my parents talked to me about our family moving there as it would be cheaper and could accommodate everyone. The only thing I wanted was the master suite for myself, and it actually became a bedroom. Currently, my mother is 6 months pregnant. Again. I work and earn a good salary. I don't pay the house bills, though I help with the groceries. This month, I started having complaints from my parents saying that I should help more with my younger brothers. I always argue that I'm not their father, and that is their responsibility. And as they are so financially tight, started to charge me to pay some bills because they were not able to. And I started to pay some, though not as much as they wanted. I had my limits when they suggested I move into their room, as they would need space for the new baby and that since they pay most of the bills, they should have the biggest room. I told them they can pay most bills, but they don't pay a dime on a huge house that's only in my name. And if they want more space for their 9th child, I suggest they move to another house, because I am the owner of the house and I won't give up my comfort because they won't stop having children. They started calling me an ungrateful son, and that they raised me to be empathetic and kind, but I am showing myself to be a cold and extremely selfish person who threatens his own parents to kick them out of the house for not agreeing with the suggestion. I talked to my maternal grandmother, and she said that she understands my side but that I may have been very hard on them, especially since they were my parents. They're not talking to me now, by the way. Am I the a-hole? Edit. We're not in the US. Obviously, I'm not able to support the house on my own, but it's a great house for renting. And if I did that, I could rent a smaller house and live on that money alone. The fees are yearly here. My grandfather left a responsible accountant to pay that for me with some money left for this. So no, they don't put money in the house besides bills and anything that break. It's not forever, but my grandfather protected me financially until I at least had a capacity and maturity to do so. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. They've got some nerve even asking that of you. It blows my mind when people pop out almost an entire football team's worth of kids and then make it other people's problem. Honestly, if you can't afford to keep having kids, stop having kids. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. If your parents can't afford to house and feed their 9 children on their own, then they should stop having kids. Their demands are also presumptuous. They will soon take over the house. And what about if you want to get married and have kids of your own? I would sit down with them and establish a timeline of how they intend to manage their lives independent of you. And make it clear that you will not be financially responsible for them, nor will you parent your siblings or give up your bedroom. Really? If OP gets married, it's only fair for them to move into the home OP already owns. Not the a-hole. Their baby, their problem. I do think it's good for you to pay your share of groceries and utilities. Beyond that, nope. And you know it will just get worse. Soon they'll be bothering you for money to feed, clothe, and educate their kids. Put your foot down. You're already generously letting them stay rent-free. If they don't like the situation, they can leave. So no, you aren't an a-hole. Not at all. Next story. Am I the a-hole for wanting my sister-in-law and her kids to move out of my house? I've been with my boyfriend for 6 years now. And after 2 years of dating, we got our own place together, including my stepson who we have full-time. This was our first ever house we each have had without living with parents/family. My sister-in-law lived with her mom, stepdad, and her 4 kids. She's a single mother. They ended up losing the house because of financial reasons and pretty much had nowhere to go. So I told my partner that his sister and kids can stay with us until she gets her own place. One of her kids ended up staying with her grandmother. Anyway, so my sister-in-law and her 3 kids moved in with my partner, stepson, and I into our small 3-bedroom house. We made it accommodating so we could all live comfortably together. At first, we were pretty close and hung out a lot, but as time went by, we started drifting apart. I think it was because of the fact my sister-in-law just stayed home all day, didn't get a job, or even look for one, never helped out with the bills or rent, and would just go out on dates with random guys she met online all the time. My partner and I both work full-time jobs, and every day I would come home and the house was an absolute mess because of all the kids. They tried to clean it, but honestly there was no point, because it would just end up going back to being messy, and I was so sick of it. This went on for over a year. She still didn't have a job and was living here for free. I would tell my partner that she needs to move out, but as she is his big sister, he defended her, even though he was annoyed as well. She ended up getting a boyfriend and would let him stay over at our house with his 2 kids. That's a total of 9 people now in our 3-bedroom house. They would have fights in the house and even broke one of the bedroom doors. My partner and I were so ticked off at the lack of respect they had. They ended up replacing the door, but that was it. I was over it. I started to put a list together of houses up for lease so she could start looking for a place. But she didn't seem interested. Later on, I found out that she was actually speaking to my stepson's biological mother, who at the time was very jealous of my partner and I being together and having my stepson full-time, and was trying to come up with ways to try and break my partner and I up. It was the ultimate snake move in my opinion. It didn't work though, and we had to sit her down and confront her about it. Can't really forgive her for it. But still, am I the a-hole for wanting them to move out knowing they kind of had nowhere to go, and it wasn't the kid's fault for anything? Not the a-hole. She is beyond disrespectful. Set a date and tell her that she needs to be out by that date, whether she has somewhere to go or not. She can go live with the mom of the stepson since they are so buddy-buddy. Not the a-hole. Your husband is way out of pocket here. I have a pretty similar situation minus the escalation. We have raised and been parents to my 10-year-old nephew almost since he was born. My sister moved in 3 years ago and was unemployed for about a year and a half. Before she moved in, I made sure that my husband knew that this was a 2 yeses situation. If he wanted her gone, she would be gone. I would be the one to handle any awkward situation or laying down the law with her. And I did. I was the one who sat her down and told her she had a month to find a job and pay rent or leave. It was not okay for your husband to say she gets to stay, even when the main problem was just her being unemployed. It's insane for him to try to force you to live with her now. Hard no. I would say she goes, or I go, except I wouldn't have to because my husband isn't an a-hole and wouldn't make me. Well, the good news, good for sister-in-law that is that she doesn't have to worry about conspiring to break them up. The guy's almost done doing her work for her. Not the a-hole. 1. She's not looking for a job to support her family and help with expenses. 2. She's not helping around the house or at least cleaning up the kids' messes. 3. She brings in even more people, still without helping with rent or chores. 4. She actively tried to sabotage your relationship. Have her pack up right now. She can stay with her good friend, the stepson's bio mom. 60 days if you are generous. 30 days if you want a shield from naysayers. Please look into your area's squatter rights, because 30 is standard for many landlords in my area. Again, do your research. Personally, after the relationship sabotage attempt, 3 days tops. Her poor kids. They're probably sick of her too. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not being willing to put my boyfriend on the deed on the new house? So, some background. My boyfriend and I have been together over a year and lived together since the beginning of the year. He doesn't hold down a job for more than a few weeks and has been through like 8 this year already. We are already rocky because of his attitude and not helping with finances when I've told him I need help. Now, I'm looking at selling my house. I got my house in my divorce from my ex-husband and it's paid off. I have primary custody, so he wanted me to keep it. Now, I want something different. And a 3 to 4 bedroom instead of the 2-bedroom I have. I want to buy another house from the proceeds of this one, either through using the money from it as a down or buying straight out. The problem is, boyfriend wants to be on the deed for the other house. He's not helping with bills as it is, and he's not contributing any money to buy the next one. His mother is throwing a fit because I told him it's not happening. I also think that's because she wants to move in and rent a room, which I also said no to due to severe drinking problem. But now he's mad that I said no, and that everyone said I'm being a bad person. Everyone being his mother and friend, who doesn't like me anyway. We're not married and he wants to be someday, but I don't. I've been down that road and I'm not in a hurry to do it again. So I question, am I the a-hole for not being willing to put him on a deed? Edit. Since everyone is asking, I think I needed to hear it from others to make sure I wasn't overreacting. When we got together, he had a stable job that he had had for years and was paying all his bills and seemed stable. The second we moved in together, it changed, and he had to find a different job because I lived an hour and a half away. Then just never stayed in them. He lost his car this year because I wouldn't pay for it. I think I just needed to see that I wasn't overreacting because I've been ready to end it for a bit. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You'd be an idiot to put him on a deed. That said, why are you even with this loser? Is the intimacy at least good? Because I am not seeing any redeeming qualities. He's lazy and greedy and selfish and mean. Not a-hole. Absolutely do not put him on the deed. He wants to just be given half of your house that you are buying for your family? WTF? Definitely not the a-hole. You've only been dating a year. Think hard about what he is asking of you, and if you're prepared for his expectations from you in the future of this relationship. Not a-hole. However, I think you should check into common law property laws before you do this. If he starts living with you in the house after you purchase it for many years, he could be entitled to it if you all ever break up. Be careful. He sounds shady. He's already mooching off you, so he will definitely try to take you to the cleaners if you ever try to kick him out. Didn't even think about this. You seem to be making really bad decisions regarding significant others. Use the move to the new house as a way to get this man out of your house. Stop financially supporting a grown man. That's money you're taking from your children and giving to him, either directly or indirectly. You should get some therapy. But until then, a hard boundary should be no moving anyone into your house. Around the 1-year mark is when responsible adults introduce their partner to their kids. There's no way in hell you should be living together. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay for my daughter's plane ticket, but paying for my youngest daughter who this vacation is dedicated to? Hello all. I have 2 daughters named Kate, 23 female, and Alexa, 16 female. For starters, Kate lives with me rent-free and bill-free. She used to live with her mom full-time, but her mom kicked her out at 18. I don't blame her mother though. Kate was absolutely terrible in her teenage years. She was rude, disrespectful, and would steal, smoke, skip class, etc. Kate barely finished high school and was put in a continuation school. Since this though, Kate is doing a lot better. She didn't want to go to college, but she works at a fast food restaurant and is saving up for her own apartment. Alexa, on the other hand, is the opposite. She's amazing in school, works, volunteers, and still has time to do sports and clubs. I'm extremely proud of her and feel as if she puts too much pressure on herself. Me and my girlfriend decided to surprise her on a vacation. Alexa has always wanted to go there, and it wasn't as pricey as we expected. We planned this in early October. I told Kate about the vacation and asked if she wanted to come, but she would have to pay her own ticket. She said yes and would give me the money before Halloween. Well, she never gave me the money, even after being reminded, so I booked the trip November 1st for the 18th to 21st of November. I told my daughter this Sunday at dinner and she was very excited. Kate then said, "You'll have to cancel and hope they refund. I work those days." I told her she wasn't coming since she didn't pay. She was confused and thought I was paying for her. I told her that she was an adult who worked and lived free. Why would I pay? She got upset and said, because I'm her daughter, and that I was paying for Alexa, so why not her? An argument then ensued, which resulted in Alexa and Kate crying, with Kate saying she hated me. Kate has been ignoring us until we apologize and pay her ticket, which I won't. Well, yesterday Alexa sent me a link to a video on TikTok where it shows Kate crying and explaining the situation, but she lied about a lot of things in the videos and made Alexa and I look like bad guys. The video got a lot of attention and support. She even opened up a GoFundMe where she received close to $500. I showed my girlfriend and we were both livid. Alexa was also very upset about the comments, which fueled my anger. When she came home, a huge argument broke out and I basically kicked her out for the week. She's been posting on social media platforms since, talking about me, my daughter, and girlfriend. My daughter even got some nasty messages on her social media. My girlfriend told me I'm right on this, but my daughter told me to just pay for her ticket. I want to know if I'm doing the right decision, so help. Not a-hole. One daughter is over 18 and has a job. The other is under 18 and in school. It is entirely reasonable to expect one to be able to pay her own way, while paying for the one who hasn't had any opportunity to make money for herself. The fact that Kate is willing to lie about you and her sister on the internet for sympathy and money should tell you something about her character. You could even report the GoFundMe as being fraudulent. Yes, please do report her to GoFundMe. She should not profit from this. Kinda think everyone sucks here. Her reaction is pretty bad, but it kinda seems like you're stacking the deck against her for past behavior a bit when they're both your daughters. Mentioning about how Kate was absolutely terrible as a child, even though you admit she's doing way better now, while being extremely proud of Alexa when that's not really relevant to the story, is a pretty big tell. I'd be pretty upset too if I felt like my parents were totally favoring my younger sibling. Also, while sure 23 is an adult, it's hardly some unusual event for a 23-year-old to still be living at home while they save up for their own place. It's nice that you're letting her live there rent-free, but she's not some random tenant. She's a part of your family, and probably, and I would say rightfully, feels incredibly hurt that you're all going on vacation without her. You're obviously within your rights to say she has to pay her own way, and her reaction is immature, but you might want to look in the mirror a little bit as to why her reaction is what it is. Even if Opie looks down on Kate for being a former problem child, how does that change the fact Kate initially agreed to pay for her own ticket? It doesn't. That's why everyone sucks here. Her actions aren't right either. She is an adult who is acting like a child. Roasting your family on TikTok is hardly a bastion of maturity. And if she said she'd pay, so be it. But there's clearly bigger issues here with communication. Maybe it's just part of Opie making the case for why they're not the a-hole, but I also really think the description of the problem child versus the little angel who can do no wrong is discomforting too. It's just totally irrelevant to the story. If your argument is she's an adult, she should pay her own way, that's fine. But how they acted as a teenager shouldn't matter. But it really seems like it does. And it seems like that colors the whole story. Update. I'm leaving my husband tomorrow. Original post. Our marriage, me 29 female and Jack 30 male, was short. Only less than a year, but rocky from the start. I don't even know what possessed me to say yes. Maybe loneliness? Maybe desperation. I don't know. He and his family are openly hostile to my only brother, 18, as I had to take care of him after our parents died. They saw him as unnecessary, and only after marriage I saw how horribly Jack treated him. For your information, my brother lives in our apartment since he wasn't old enough to have his own place. Jack, I'm almost ashamed to say, is not a very good man. He's lazy and never does any house chores, and brother does everything Jack should have done. He plays on his computer all day and goes out to drink with his buddies almost daily. He never hits me or my brother, but he does treat us like his caretakers. I'm honestly getting sick of it. My last straw was when Jack insisted that I give him the inheritance money my brother was set to get for college. I refused. Money has always been a sore spot to him, as admittedly I earn 4 times than he does. And I even keep our finances separate thanks to a lawyer uncle's advice. I fired back saying how he should stop doing freelance work that pays him dirt, and not snooping around mine and my brother's business. We fought, and in the middle of that fight he left, leaving his phone behind. I don't know what caused me to poke around his phone. And guess what? Not only he's a lazy piece of work who doesn't even have a stable job to pursue a passion I don't even understand, he's also a cheating bastard. I was heartbroken. I cried myself to sleep. Then I called my lawyer uncle to serve him the divorce paperwork. Jack doesn't know I know about his side piece. He still treats my brother like a nuisance and demands me to hand over our inheritance to him. I keep my silence, as does my brother. He's going to a weekend outing with his buddies tomorrow, and I will pack up my things and leave. Divorce papers on the table. I cut the lease to our apartment, and he'd only have the next week to figure out where he'd go. I got a place across town, closer to my relatives. I'll take care of the rest as I go. I deeply regret marrying this man. He's wasted 2 years of my life, and I'm so angry with myself that I was too blind to see how I should never have married him. Tomorrow, I'm leaving him, and I don't care if I seem like I would not fight for my marriage. I don't have the energy to deal with a grown man who still thinks like a frat boy. Now for the top comments before the updates. Good luck. Listen to your lawyer. All communication should be through them. Thanks. I've blocked his social but not his number. Yet. He'll have to call my uncle for that. Be careful not to let this guy know where you live. Don't text or even take his calls. This all goes through your uncle now. No matter how much you think you know someone, it can become dangerous if your ex goes off the deep end. Best of luck to you and brother. Now get on with a fabulous life. I'm planning to get those 2 cats Jack refused to have, and I'll get on being a fabulous wine cat mom, since we don't have a kid yet. Just knowing I'd be away from him brings me a huge relief. It wasn't a waste as you learned what you married into. You dodged a bullet by not having a child with him yet. Now you can refresh with the knowledge of red flags. Also, you should apologize to your brother, and the 2 of you go out for dinner and ice cream as loving siblings. Please be safe. I'm worried this animal will be violent when you tell him you're gonna leave or after he finds out. Maybe violent towards you or your brother, plus you said he gets drunk often. I'm not saying call the cops on him for no reason, but be careful. Hopefully he doesn't know the place you're moving into. I would leave without saying a word. Let the divorce papers do the talking. He never hits me because he knows I would at least slap him back. But yes, thank you for the advice. I will be keeping an eye on any of his insanity should it occurs. I'm mostly worried he'd harass my grandparents, to be honest, but right now they're on a cruise, so they're safe. Now for the first update. It's been a busy weekend. I barely even had a time to open my phone. Over the weekend, I moved out with the help of my two best friends, my cousin and my uncle. They were very helpful, and in a day we finished packing up everything and left the apartment. I am now living closer to my uncle, my mom's little brother, and his family while my brother is waiting to move into his dorms. My uncle helped me installing the cameras outside of our new place. Thank you everyone for the advice. Changed my passwords, PIN numbers, and phone number while we're at it. I took a week off work and thankfully my boss understood and let me. I wish I could see his face when he came back to the apartment and found the place empty. Some of my friends were called but they told Jack they didn't know where I went as I haven't told anyone but my uncle and best friends. Jack came to my uncle's place, but my uncle kicked him out of his property. And while Jack threatened to go all out and contest the divorce, my uncle gave him an ultimatum in return. Sign it without a fuss or I'll try to get alimony from him. Hopefully Jack won't make a hassle out of the divorce proceedings. As for myself, I'm just happy to be away from him, even with no alimony or divorce settlement. From this point onward, I will have no contact with him or people associated with him. It seems cowardly, but I'd rather avoid a drama. I believe we'll have some kind of drama later, but honestly, as long as he signs that divorce paper, I'm fine with that. I finally talked to my brother and apologized for getting him into such an environment. He was understandably disappointed with me, but he forgave me. He said he was glad that I decided to leave. We had a good crying session over that. Right now, I'm trying to make it up to him. He's a good kid, a smart and tough cookie, and he deserves better. Should he need to, we'll go to therapy together. He convinced me he was okay, and he was mostly angry on my behalf, but I'll keep an eye on that. I haven't adopted the cats yet because my place is still messy and we're not done unpacking. So unfortunately, no cat tax for now. Thank you everyone for cheering me on, giving me lots of virtual hugs and checking up on me. I didn't expect for this much support, and your kindness makes everything feels bearable. A lot of you have given me a sound advice about health tests, security, and everything else, which I am very, very grateful for. Some of them I did not even consider. This sounds so cliche and simple, but thank you so much. I hope you all have a great day. Added to add, we're not from the US, but our laws regarding marriage and divorce is pretty clean-cut. I don't think you'd get any money from me. Congratulations starting the next chapter of your life. I know no matter how awful he was, this wasn't easy, but I'm so glad to hear that you have the support network you need around you. Good luck, and I think there are a couple lucky cats want to have a wonderful home soon. Thank you. It was very overwhelming when I read all the comments in my post. I wanted to rant a bit, and this was the only place I thought was safer, but it turned out a lot of people were very supportive, even sent me messages out of concern. I don't even care if he found me here. I'm away from him now. I'll be visiting the shelter as soon as I get my apartment in order. I'm so happy and relieved for you. Can't wait till you get the cats and start your new life as a cat mom. Thank you. I was so overwhelmed yesterday, but now I'm more settled. I know it won't be easy shaking him off, but I personally think he won't make too much of a fuss. I can't wait to go to the shelter and get a cat or two. But first, let me clean up my new place because we unpacked in a hurry. I only just found your first post about 10 minutes ago. Wild that you've just posted an update as well. I don't even know you, but I'm so proud of you. My heart was in my chest reading both posts. You're an amazing sister and you've done so much for your brother. This blip will amount to nothing when he is a grown man. But that is only because you did the right thing and got him out of there. As for your now ex-husband, I think you very narrowly dodged a deadly bullet. I agree, now in hindsight. I remember some stuff that should have been a big waving red flag, that maybe I was too ignorant to pay attention to. I felt a little dumb, but at least now I can take a step to fix it. Now for the last update. I don't know. I feel like I owe people some updates, so here I am, on the process of my divorce. He made some fuss, but otherwise agreeable to the terms I set. At least he doesn't harass me or my family anymore. As for his family, some made comments on social media, but my friends were quick to shut them down. I blocked them though. He got a car that I paid for. I'm kind of miffed, but that's okay, as long as I don't have to look at his face ever again. I felt kinda down and sorry for myself, and I blamed myself a little bit. I'm going to try to get better mentally because the guilt was pretty strong. My brother is doing good, more carefree now that he doesn't have to watch himself. I'm so proud of him. A little ashamed of myself, but overall the both of us are doing way better. And we bond better now. And also, I found a cat. Well, he found me. I was throwing out garbage and he came up to me, followed me to the apartment, and made himself at home on top of my unpacked boxes. I think he's a stray, a year-old at most. And I took the photo in a rush because I had to go to work today. Gonna take him to the vet, get him vaccinated, and everything else. Also buy proper food because I only bought small packets of kibble and wet food earlier. Thank you everyone for showing your concerns and support. I guess I won't be making more updates unless something happens. I hope you all have a nice day. I want to add some advice. Some people that were in toxic relationships have a tendency to have their next partners be just as bad. Please consider therapy to help analyze to keep you from having a similar partner in the future. I wish you and your brother the best of luck moving forward. Next story. Am I the a-hole for returning home after I found out that my husband booked first class for him and his friend while I got economy? My husband and I, 30s, haven't been on a trip out of country for years, while he goes every year with his best friend. His reasons for going with him is because they both go to attend sporting events. This year, my husband told me I could go with him and his friend since they were visiting a new destination. He paid for my ticket and everything else since I'm a stay-at-home mom and have no job. The kids were left with my mom. However, when I found out that he had booked first class for himself and his friend while I got economy, I just couldn't hold my tongue. I confronted him about it and he at first refused to discuss it. Then when the argument got heated, he yelled, "I paid for your ticket for Pete's sake. Isn't that enough?" Then kept on about how I should stop acting like I was royalty. And that if I come to think about it, even economy is fine for me since I technically don't work anyway. I cried because of what he said, but decided to just not go altogether. He changed his tone and started begging me to just go with what he planned, but I declined. I went to pick the kids from my mom's house and he came back 3 hours later huffing and puffing about what happened. His friend sent me a text calling me entitled and said this was the reason why he didn't want my husband to take me with them, and I just proved his point. I did not respond, but I blocked him since he's gotten increasingly rude over the past few months. He, my husband, said I keep crying about being excluded, and this is what happens when he finally decides to include me? Am I the a-hole for not settling for economy? By the way, he's perfectly capable of financing the trip. Now for the top comments. If you're a stay-at-home mom, then all the money he earns is shared funds. There was no him paying. In fact, you paid for his first-class ticket as much as he paid for your economy ticket. The level of disrespect is astounding. Divorce him and get half plus alimony, not the a-hole. I hate to jump on the divorce wagon, but in this case, it's so obvious how much he doesn't care or even respect OP. Not the a-hole times 1 million. I'm not sure why he even married OP. It seems like he's already in a long-term relationship with his friend. It was my very first thought. Why does he want to have alone trips every year with his friend? And why would he seat his own wife in a totally different class than himself? So she can't be around them? I almost have a feeling he would make her stay in her own room too while he shared one with his friend. Is your husband having an affair with his friend? Why is his friend so rude to you? And why is friend being treated like the spouse in this situation? Whether or not he's having an affair, he's definitely shown you how he feels about you. Not the a-hole. This. Maybe you should reevaluate your marriage. Maybe when they are on the trip, talk to a lawyer, get a divorce, and change the locks. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for yelling at my girlfriend for baking a dessert for a dinner party? I, 26 male, have been dating my girlfriend Rosie, 23 female, for a year now. Rosie and my mother did not get along. It's just about the fact that their personality differences are so large. My mom is a more conservative and reserved person, and Rosie is the opposite of that. My mom is a really picky person and has never been happy with anyone I date over the years. But I usually ignore her because it's not her life. Yes, I always shut down my mother's snarky comments about anyone I date. On to the problem. Tomorrow night, my mother is hosting a dinner party for everyone in our family. I'm not sure about other families/cultures, but usually when we throw dinner parties, everyone will bring something. I thought this was the perfect time for Rosie and my mom to get along better. I told Rosie that she should home make something. I also made something. My mother hates anything sweet, so I told Rosie to refrain from baking any desserts. Rosie said she wanted to bake something because it's what she does best when it comes to the kitchen. I just told her to look up a recipe on Google. She was quiet, and about an hour later I came downstairs because I could smell something sweet, and I found Rosie piping macaron batter. I freaked out. I started yelling about how I told her to specifically not make anything sweet, because this was her one chance to get on my mother's good side, and I feel like she only made a dessert to be petty. She got upset and told me to not raise my voice at her, and that she was not doing it to be petty. She just doesn't care what my mother thinks of her and that my mother's not the only guest at the dinner party. I got frustrated and made a mistake of telling her to stay home instead, and she told me that she would and that she now would not go no matter what, even if I changed my mind. I regret telling her that because if she doesn't go, my mother will really not like her. But am I the a-hole for telling her not to bake something sweet? Edit. I made a lasagna for the party. I keep seeing that question, so I thought I would put it here. And yes, it is homemade. You're the a-hole. You yelled at her for baking, dude. WTF. Your mom has never liked a single person you've dated, and you think Rosie choosing to make a dessert instead of a savory dish is going to make the slightest bit of difference? It won't. Rosie can't win with your mom, so she might as well make something she can do well that others will enjoy, than contribute some half-assed thing that she's not confident about. You owe her a massive apology. Also, don't freak out about small items and say things you don't mean. It is very immature, and a great way to drive away your significant other and your friends. One of the lessons my mom taught me I have always tried to follow. Never say anything in anger you can't take back. You're the a-hole. Your girlfriend is right. There are other people at a party. She doesn't need to cater to your mother solely. Also, why is it such a big deal that your mom doesn't like sweet foods? There's plenty of other food there, I'm sure, so she can eat something that your girlfriend didn't make. The awful cherry on top of this story is that you yelled at your girlfriend about a really stupid point. You're playing into your mother's pettiness, and I feel bad for your partner for being on the receiving end of it. Am I the a-hole for dropping my uncle's affair partner's name at dinner after he tried to shame me? I'm female 20. My uncle, my father's brother, is 37. I remember when I was a kid, he used to bring a different girl every time he visited us. Not that often, I'll admit. Until he suddenly stopped visiting a few years. I was a teenager at the time, so I had no idea what was going on with him until he came home for my dad's birthday. Dad didn't like it, but he let him in. That night, my dad explained that my uncle was a serial cheater and had stopped coming over after I called him out on his behavior, and he didn't like it. But this time he seemed to have changed, but will not be involved in my uncle's business again. Well, my uncle got married and made a happy home with his new wife. Until last year when my uncle invited me to watch a movie in the theater. But he wasn't alone. He had a girl with him who wasn't his wife, who we'll call Macy. I was too afraid to ask about it, but he talked to me alone and told me not to tell anyone about her. Except that I told my father. He was disappointed, but told me to mind my own business and that he no longer cared what my uncle did. So on Easter, we had dinner with my family. I brought my boyfriend, male 20. We have been dating for a few months. One thing you should know is that I've dated a girl before. My uncle knows this and makes jokes about it at my expense. He came to dinner with his wife, and during the night he made fun of me. At one point, he looked at my boyfriend and said to him, "You need to ask her for a group activity before she does one without you, mate." I was shocked, and everyone at the table went silent. Even my grandma, who always made snide comments about everything, didn't know what to say. I was embarrassed and annoyed, so I said, "So uncle, how's Macy?" His wife asked, "Who's Macy?" He tried to say, "Nobody, I don't know." But I replied, "But we went to the movies together last year. She looked nice." His wife looked at me like if looks could kill, and she said we're leaving, and they just left like that. Later, my uncle texted me about how immature that was. It was none of my business to get involved. And now he had to factory reset his phone because his wife will not stop asking to see his phone unlocked, and is still bothering him about it. He also found my boyfriend's Instagram and DM'd him, "Dude, control your bitch." I'm pretty offended. He never insulted me before. My father told me that I should have minded my own business because he would never learn, and what I did would not teach him anything. My boyfriend, however, has done nothing but praise me for my pettiness. I'm kinda regretting it because seems like I launched a nuke and I wasn't ready for the fallout. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. That was an awesome move. Next time, Uncle should learn how to keep his mouth shut. If his wife asks you about Macy, don't lie. Also, I would like to add that when he brought the affair partner around, he made it OP's business. What kind of a-hole does that? Oh right, one that cheats on his partners. Why the heck would he take you somewhere with his affair partner? He's too stupid to get away with it. If his wife didn't find out like this, I'm sure she would have found out some other way. Not the a-hole. My dad literally took me to McDonald's to meet this woman he was cheating on my mom with. Cheaters are dumb. When my mom got home, I told her right away. My dad took my little brother to help clean the apartment he was moving into without my mom's knowledge. My brother told our mom literally as soon as they walked in the door at home. Lol. Not the a-hole. You never owe a cheater loyalty. He cheated in front of you, likely used you as a cover, and had the indecency to shame you in front of your partner and family. Honestly, he deserves anything he gets. Not to mention messaging her boyfriend and calling her the B-word. This is not how you treat family. He's a prick, not the a-hole. Next story. Am I the a-hole for exposing my half-sister's lies about our childhood? I, 24 female, have a half-sister, 27 female. We'll call her Taylor. My dad had weekend visitation with Taylor at our house until I was 8, and it was the worst. She bullied me really badly anytime I saw her, to the point that I would scream every time my dad even mentioned her coming over. Even if we were kept apart, she would break my things, upset my pets, and tell lies about me. Every week, her mom would end up in the kitchen screaming at my parents. Taylor's mom died when I was 11. Her mom didn't have any family able to take her in, and neither did my dad. My dad was the only one who could get custody. When I was told about this, I freaked out. Screaming, crying for hours, calling my grandparents and demanding to live with them. All of it. My mom wasn't willing to have Taylor in the house on that basis. And I'm pretty sure she said she would move out if my dad pushed the issue. Taylor ended up being sent to boarding school the next year, and she would go stay with the other members of my dad's family during breaks. When I was 14, my parents divorced and I would see Taylor every few months at my dad's during school breaks. I'd learned to stand up for myself, and she'd grown up, so there was no more bullying, though we'd bicker. She was hostile, and I never backed down. I didn't see her much after she went to college, and then I went to college far away as well. We now live in the same small city. I moved here in March. It's the kind of place where everyone from each generation knows of each other. I've never encountered Taylor socially, and never mentioned knowing her. But I had met her boyfriend, and his friends are part of my larger social group. The other night, I was at a party, and Taylor and her boyfriend were there as well. We made eye contact and waved, but she pretty much avoided me all night. During the night, our mutual friends asked how I know Taylor, and I said we are half-sisters. They all looked super uncomfortable, so I pressed for an explanation. Basically, Taylor's been telling everyone that she was homeless as a kid because her stepmother and half-sister hated her, and demanded she be shipped off to boarding school, and made her dad ignore her. Were it not for the fact that it was obviously going to come out sooner or later that we are related, I probably wouldn't have bothered to set the record straight. As it was, I'm going to be around these people for a long time, and I didn't feel I should have had to walk around burdened by the weight of her lies. So I told the group the context. She called me yesterday to yell at me. Apparently, she's being ostracized from the group. Her relationship is in trouble, her career opportunities are in jeopardy, etc. I don't see how any of this is my fault, because she's the one who lied. But according to some people, I should have been a bit gentler in my retelling of the facts, because it's her experience, and I've basically blackballed her. Edit? I didn't have space for this, but just to clarify what I actually said to my friends. I explained that the reason my mom didn't want Taylor to live with us was because of the bullying, and that when they split, my dad still didn't have Taylor live with him, and that I only stayed with him on weekends. But Taylor told them I moved in with my dad so that she couldn't. I also told them it wasn't true that I told my dad not to finance Taylor's business when she was 20, because I didn't. That was pretty much the gist of it. My mom didn't say to send her to boarding school. What my mom said was, Taylor is not living in this house with my daughter. If that means we split, then we split. My dad didn't want to be a full-time parent by himself, so he stayed with my mom. And since he didn't have any other family Taylor could live with for various reasons, He sent her to boarding school. My dad never cut contact with Taylor. He visited her at school that was about an hour away, and sometimes would see her at other relatives' places during school breaks. When he moved out, Taylor would occasionally spend a day and maybe one break a year at his place. Everyone sucks here. Her account of being homeless because her stepsister and stepmother hated her and wouldn't allow her in their home was essentially the truth. The adults in that situation should have done much more to create a better situation for you both. You didn't deserve to be bullied or terrorized in your own home, but she was young, clearly had awful parenting, and she needed more too. Realizing you didn't look great according to Taylor's account, I definitely think you handled it poorly. You moved to her city, joined up with her friend group, and when telling your side of the story en masse, you should have been more gentle and even perhaps more neutral, acknowledging you were both children when all this went down. Honestly, despite sounding like a bit of a craphead as a kid, I really feel bad for Taylor, because she was by all accounts abandoned by her family and is now on the outs from a large friend group. The dad should have left Opie's mother the moment she made him choose between his daughters. That way, he could have the girls in separate times and work on helping Taylor the way she needed, but he chose the easy way out. Opie's mom did the right thing by protecting her daughter. Not the a-hole. For someone to entirely reverse their decision about a person based on the story of a stranger they've just met, that's a big deal. It feels like it wasn't actually a surprise. For it to have had as big an impact as to upset work opportunities over hearsay. She's probably been tending to a garden of red flags for a while. Her sister was that one friend that no one really likes, but pities too much to end a friendship. Opie just enabled the friends to get over their pity, and they no longer had any reason to maintain a friendship. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not pushing my family to include my fiancé in Christmas card photos? I, 37 male, am engaged to my fiancé, 31 female, planning on getting married at the end of this year. My family takes a Christmas card photo every year, usually around big events like graduations or parties when everyone is together, which isn't often. Years ago, my mom instituted a not until you married policy to include significant others in photos and applied that rule to my brother when he was dating and engaged to his now wife. My fiancé has had significant issues with this. Last year, when the family took photos shortly after she and I were engaged, she directed many snide comments to me about how excluded she feels. This year, she flatly refused to drive with me to a family graduation, saying how hurt and excluded she felt by this policy. Since we are getting married this year and the card is coming out the year we are getting married. I've tried to explain that this isn't our card. This isn't our right to tell others who can and can't be on their card, and we could always have our own card to start our own tradition. She made several comments around how surprised she is that I haven't stood up for her to my mother, even telling me that she's discussed the issue with others, and they also are surprised that I wouldn't take a stand with my mother on this. She also made a point multiple times to say, "Good, less time to spend in photos with them at the wedding," implying a tit-for-tat response to this policy. I don't really know what to do. Am I the a-hole? Your mother is very wise. Your fiancé is a bit of a main character, isn't she? Wow, and she's already planning retaliation at your wedding? Dude, you may seriously want to rethink things here. These are red flags, and her behaving like an entitled child is going to cause some serious friction now and later. You are not the a-hole, but your fiancé definitely is and needs serious help. Edited to Ed, read some of your other posts. OP, you need to run. So many red flags. Just run. To those of you defending the fiancé, check OP's post history. It explains the general reaction, "Oh my god, no, don't do it." Mom's rule may be a bit prescient. Exclude fiancé, fiancé gets pissy, son sees fiancé is pissy, wedding is called off, fiancé never becomes family, rule vindicated. Mom's rule is in fact a test. Honestly, this is the easiest mom test I've ever heard of. If this woman can't suck it up about being included on someone else's Christmas card for a year or two, God help the man who marries her. I get the rule when someone is dating, but if you're engaged, it does feel a little harsh. My family isn't exactly super open with other people in our photos either, but I think this is pretty rude. So soft you're the a-hole. Meh, some people use the word engaged pretty loosely. Sometimes it's an excuse to live together without setting a date. I get that OP has firm plans for the end of the year, but plans change. Married is an arbitrary line, but at least it is easy to determine. OP is correct that is not his Christmas card and not his rule. He could have not gone to the graduation this year, and in that way avoided a photo perhaps, but then is dissing to graduate for no good reason, as she did. You are not a-hole. I get why your mom put this rule in place years ago. The last picture of my kids with my great-grandmother has my brother's ex-girlfriend in it, and they were about to get engaged. Your mom didn't make this rule new for your fiancé, so I don't know why she would be so upset by it. Is she being excluded in other ways? Last story. Am I the a-hole for not letting my sister use the family property for her upcoming wedding? I'm 25, my sister is 29. I also have a younger sister, 8. When I was 14, my mom sent me to live with her parents. Her excuse was that they needed me to help out. I believe she just didn't want to deal with a growing male teen. My grandparents own an amazing property in the mountains that has an amazing view. We also have some horses and other critters. They were also quite wealthy as well. They both passed 4 years ago, a month apart. They gave me the property because I would appreciate and respect it more, while my mom and sisters got money and other assets which was overall valued more than the property. In the past 4 years, I turned part of the property into a venue for mainly weddings. Grandparents knew of this idea and thought it was a good one. We are busy and usually booked about 8 months out. My sister got engaged 1.5 years ago and said she wants to get married at a property. I said sure, just let me know the date as soon as possible so I can make sure it is booked. I never got a date. I followed up several times and kept asking her and she would just brush me off. Then 2 weeks ago, I got the wedding invitation, stating the property is the location and the date, which is in September of this year. I immediately called her to say that we are booked for that date and can't accommodate her. Well, now her, my mom, other family, her partner's family, as well as other flying monkeys, have been blowing up on me. They are also calling and writing reviews for my business. I asked them to stop and called my sister telling her that literally all she had to do was tell me when she knew her date so I could block it, and I would take care of everything else. But she went off on how I am ruining her day, that it's our family's property. How she already sent out the invitations and couldn't go back now, that I should just tell the other couple to cancel, because family's more important. The couple have been on the books for over a year now, and I actually like them. After the last big blow up, I started communicating strictly through the business, using our recorded line as well as email. I suggested 3 other dates around the same time, but that's not good enough. They just say I'm being resentful and an a-hole. Not the a-hole, but your sister is a giant a-hole for expecting you to cancel another couple's date for, what, selfish family? She just needed to tell you the date and didn't. That's on her. Who the heck sends out invitations for a date before even contacting the venue? Not a-hole. I was all ready to read a story about OP saying no or fighting a family versus individual ownership and some personal drama. But there's none of that. It is really as simple as sending an invite for a date without even asking the venue. I just don't understand how people can be so consumed in their own weddings. So thankful my wife was not like this. It reminds me of the people who just decided to have a wedding at a mansion without telling the owners, sent invites, and showed up on the day claiming they had a right because they prayed for it or something. Wacky. Not a-hole. I would suggest getting a lawyer involved before your family causes harm to your business. Send them all cease and desist letters. This is your property and business. Do not allow them to discredit it just because they are not getting their way. I'd also put a PSA out that our wedding will not be at your venue. That way, a bunch of people don't show up and ruin this other lovely couple's wedding by causing a scene. One thing I have learned is you never mix family and business. Family will never respect your business because they feel entitled to it. So it's best to not only offer a family a small discount, but still make them go through all the proper channels, or they don't get whatever service you provide.